The NASA Space Launch System is a multi-billion-dollar project by NASA, which at the time seemed to be one of the biggest achievements of NASA. But sadly, the Space Launch System, the hope of major scientific discoveries for the 21st century, turned out to be a setback, a failure that we don't think can be resolved soon. The SLS was originally scheduled to be launched in 2017, but due to recent complications, the launch was postponed as many things have gone wrong with the project. Stay tuned to learn why this project was a failure and how Tesla SpaceX is set to put this mega rocket out of business. What is the Space Launch System and why was it built in the first place? Since NASA canceled the Apollo program, no astronaut has been able to travel further than low Earth orbit (LEO), and we have yet to venture very far from Earth, with a few probes being the only exception. This aspiration to settle on the moon poses a problem from a technological standpoint. We need a way to transport not only people, but also many tons of cargo to the moon, Mars, and other worlds if we want to colonize these places in the future. Since the Saturn V rocket went out of production, there is yet to be a rocket with sufficient power to turn this dream into a reality, because the world will require a more powerful rocket to colonize space successfully. The concept of constructing the Space Launch System rocket first came into existence. The Space Launch System, also known as SLS, is the most recent initiative undertaken by the United States government to construct a launch vehicle capable of carrying extremely heavy payloads into space. The program, currently being developed by third-party contractors for NASA, was initially conceived as a way to rescue engineering and jobs from two other programs. The first of these is known as the Constellation program. It began in 2005 to design rockets and crew capsules that would be adequate for finishing the construction of the International Space Station, traveling to Mars, and returning to the moon. NASA awarded contracts for traditional aerospace and defense contractors such as Boeing and Lockheed Martin under the program. The SLS is a large rocket, and the first part, which will reuse space shuttle engines, will have a lift capacity of 95 tons to LEO and 26 tons to the moon. The initial stage of the rocket is propelled by a single core stage in the center and two solid rocket boosters on either side. The core stage architecture is standard across all SLS blocks, whereas the designs of the various SLS blocks' upper stages and boosters are unique. It houses the fuel and oxidizer tanks for the ascent phase, liquid hydrogen, and liquid oxygen. Additionally, it houses the avionics, the forward and aft solid rocket booster attach points, and the main propulsion system. It was set to launch in 2017, but sadly, it did not go ahead as planned. The launch date for the EM-1, which eventually became Artemis 1, moved from 2017 to July 2018 to November 2018 to December 2019 to June 2020. In November 2018, less than a year after moving the launch date to June 2020. According to Wikipedia, the total funding for the Space Launch System (SLS) between 2011 and 2018, including finances for upper stages, is approximately $14 billion. They're quick to add that this does not include the funding that was done under the Constellation for Ares V or Ares I, which is where the SLS originates, the Orion capsule, which is where the SLS will primarily carry its payload, or the integration costs for either SLS or Orion. The SLS's high price tag was largely attributable to the fact that the rocket could not be reused. Yes, it isn't easy to picture a multi-billion-dollar project being used just once. As SLS was experiencing serious problems in the interim, the private sector was making headway, particularly Tesla, who went there with their project Starship. SpaceX, a company based in the United States, is creating a reusable super heavy lift launch rocket called Starship. SpaceX claims that Starship is about twice as powerful as the competition and can generate around 17 million pounds of thrust, a quantity that no future variation of the SLS might even come near to attaining. It is anticipated that Starship will be the first launch vehicle to exhibit complete reusability. The Space Launch System (SLS), the next giant rocket that NASA is developing, will be very expensive to operate. According to NASA Inspector General, the cost of each launch averages out to about $4.1 billion. That's more than twice as much as the anticipated spending on the launch. If the SLS is successful in its launch attempt, it will temporarily become the most powerful rocket in the world. However, the title would be unassailable if Starship were to launch first. Starship's payload capacity is almost 30% more than that of SLS, and because it's reusable, it might reduce the cost per kilogram launched to as little as $10. SLS will not be able to compete with SpaceX if the latter achieves its admittedly high target launch costs. We've reached the end of the video. Please tell us what you think about the NASA Space Launch System and whether there is a remedy for the expensive launch cost. Don't forget to hit the like button and turn on the bell icon so as to not miss out on the future updates. We'll see you guys next time. Till then, take care.